Hello, everybody, and welcome to a conversation with artist Kate Berry Brown. Hello, Kate.
Hi, Lisa.
Thank you for joining me. As you know, typically we would have an art opening where people can meet all the artists and see their work, but times as they are, we are doing these fun interviews with everybody. So we appreciate you letting us into your world to interview you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about what's in the exhibit. Let's talk about the piece that you are showing and how you make it, because I think that's quite an interesting part of the story.
Okay. So all my work is pen and ink. I like to keep it simple because I like to be able to pick it up and put it down and make it easy on myself. Sort of make it my workspace is constantly moving around. So and it's all cross-hatching. It's really dense pieces.
And literally, for people who don't know what cross-hatching is, it's literally
line by line by line, these short lines that literally cross over each other. Sometimes I feel like it's really meditative, and sometimes I feel like it's the most tedious thing in the world. And that's sort of...
What position are you in when you're doing it? Do you have it on an easel, or is it flat and you're hunched over?
It's flat, and I guess I'm hunched over. It's flat, and because I dip the pen. It's like I have one sitting right here, a dirty one. All right, there's my pen, and I have a little bottle of ink, and so I can't prop it up. But you know, I've come to think of these pieces as really like the process is almost the most important to me. So I feel like that's all part of it. And as I work, I've found that if I look too far ahead, if I start looking at the whole blank sheet of white paper, I start getting really overwhelmed, and it makes me have to focus in on each line. And the more I think about that, the more I see it really as a meditative process. So,
and they're big. Like you're not cross-hatching on 3x5 cards. You're working on surfaces that are oftentimes 3 feet by 2 feet. Do you cut it out and put, like, the piece you have is bulbous? That's just the shape of the paper, and then you draw over that shape?
I usually draw it out first, and then as I go, I cut it. And the cutting to me is super exciting. That's what makes me, like, my heart sort of like flutter, because it sounds crazy, but it's sort of what makes it all come together for me. So so that's the part when I first started these pieces, I saved to last, and now I kind of do it as I go.
And you have said somewhere in your answers that you feel there's this relevance in your work to the time right now. And I sometimes hear myself saying, today is so awful and daunting. If I can just get to dinner, if I can just focus on the next thing, everything will be fine. And as you do this work, I mean, talk a little bit about how it is relevant to right now, to your world, to parenthood, to all of this.
I did. I've been thinking a lot about that, because at the beginning of the pandemic, I had a friend say to me, you know what, we just need to reinvent ourselves. And I thought, no, I don't want to reinvent myself. I want to explore what I've been exploring and, like, really keep going. Like, I've worked 42 years to be where I am. I need to delve into, I'm looking to, like, keep going. I finally hit on this body of work that I'm so excited to keep going on. And part of that, I think, for me, is that it began with the idea of being a mother, and, like, how much attention, the word heavy always comes to mind, and that's not what I mean, because it's the fullness of life being a mother with 3 small children, and all the gratitude that comes with that. And I talk about the abundance of that. And that means like, you know, sometimes it's too much. Sometimes it just, you just want space, like metaphorically or physical space. And I feel like right now with the heaviness of the pandemic, and now with, you know, the protests and people asking for change or demanding change. And we have so much work to do with that, it feels, my work to me feels relevant because of that fullness. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. No, totally.
Yeah. And I am proud of that. I feel like, you know what, I feel like this translates, not just to motherhood, but to life and the news and the barrage of information we're constantly getting. So,
and I appreciate you not, you know, tossing it all out the door and reinventing it, because you have had a very circuitous route to your art career. You obviously talk a little bit about like what that journey was like and what all the different mediums that you sort of have incorporated to get to this point where you're doing this body of work, which people obviously respond so well to. And, you know, was that always the case when you were doing floral? Was it this response? I mean, like, people love this. So talk a little bit about that art journey.
that's nice, because that's, you want people to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is like, feels like success when you feel like you're reaching people. So that's amazing. I started out as a fashion designer at WashU in St. Louis. I think I was thinking I could have a career in that and make money. Silly me, I moved to Chicago, and that is
not a fashion hub. Okay.
no, it's not a fashion hub. So anyway, long story short, I ended up working in the floral business, and I loved it so much that I moved to Holland and got my master's in floral design, which was like a 5-month full-time program. And it was the color and like the design and the texture and everything that I loved about fashion and art. I loved about floral design, but it made people happy.
Mm-hmm.
So I loved that. And I ended up getting a job at a place in Chicago and working with this guy who was absolutely an artist, thinking outside the box, always challenging the medium of floral like flowers. And I got my creativity out that way. And when I left there and moved to Vegas with my now husband for his job, that was sort of the end of my floral career, like full-time floral career, because we ended up getting married and starting family. So that was when I started painting and drawing again. So it's always sort of that creativity and art has always seeped out in some way, or sort of overflowed in some way. So,
and how long have you been working on this specific body of work? And did you ever do cross-hatching before?
It has shown up in various ways, yes, but never like this. I was doing commissioned portraits for a while, which people really responded to. And when I decided like no more commissions, I cannot do this anymore, it was hard for me because people respond so much to something that looks like a photograph. And
Yeah.
I thought, oh my God, this is, and I look at my Instagram page, which is like almost like a story of where I've been and I floundered a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
trying to find the voice that I have found now. But it was worth it. I loved it. And I feel like I'm just, you know, I'm being 42, you know, I know myself. I like have a voice. It feels good.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, me too. I love it.
But no, I love it. And I what's been so interesting about these conversations is there's this vein of like, people knew at 4, at 7, at 17, that this was the thing they were called to do. And it's so interesting to watch how that manifests. So talk a little bit about your inspirations, because I think this is also an interesting point that you make, especially because we're very isolated. We can't go to museums. Tell me what it is you're looking at and who you're looking at and where you're seeing inspiration.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I find, like probably all artists, I find inspiration literally everywhere. In conversations, in shapes, in like shadows on the wall. I mean, just literally, like my daughter has a box of squishies, those little toys, and I like look at the way they form to each other, and that I mean, so really I find it anywhere. But obviously I also am on Instagram. I have 2 accounts. I have my personal account, which I'm on a lot less, and then I have my art account, which I am constantly on, because even with that tiny little screen, it's like I follow amazing artists with this. I feel like all these platforms are posting artists, Black and brown artists, and so I'm finding all these new artists and these new voices, and it's better than seeing no art. I'd rather be at the museums, but I really love that about Instagram, and I love that there's sort of an art.
Okay, there was just like a very small glitch. Instagram. Last question. Where are you making? Where are you doing this cross-hatching?
I have moved from my studio upstairs in my bedroom to the living room desk, because my kids, I need to be where my kids can hear and see me or they freak out. So I'm like right in the middle of the house, and it just makes it easier for everybody. Like I can, and again, like my materials make it so I can pop up and down, and
do they know what you're doing? Are they like, mommy is an artist?
Yes, they do. And I'm so that there's nothing that that's almost the best part to me, is showing my kids how important art is to me, even if they do complain when I drag them to shows.
Awesome.
But yeah.
Kate, thank you so much. I'm really excited to post this interview, because I think that the work is awesome, but also your background and your story and how you've come to the work is so interesting. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. This has been great.